So let's walk through some engagement models for agile change. So we're going to start off just by sketching out the first part, which is defining some ideal state. So it doesn't really exist, not really set in stone, and we don't have any hard targets, but it's some ideal state that we hope to achieve at some point in the future. From there, we start to define where exactly we are in the present. Again, we have the map metaphor that lets us create a clear picture of where we are currently. So just by this, like I've said before, you're going to get a lot of different answers from different people. So it's a good level set activity to start off an agile change effort. So current state. So the goal is that we want to obviously move from our current state towards our ideal. But the problem is that in most cases, there are some obstacles that are preventing us from doing that. So the next step is getting clarity and defining what those obstacles are. Once we have that, we can better define some targets. So these targets are going to be what basically enable us to actually move towards our ideal. So once we overcome these obstacles, we'll slowly be able to make progress towards our ideal by achieving these different outcomes. Now, how do we do that? Well, to get around these obstacles comes the final step, which is defining experiments. So by making these movements, by doing rapid experimentation, we get around the obstacles and make progress on achieving these outcomes that then get us towards our ideal state. So one of the reasons why this model clicks so much with me is that it covers and it replicates a lot of the different parts from the strategy cycle from Wordly maps. So we start with the ideal. The ideal can sort of be thought of as our why of purpose. So this is why we want to make a change and what sort of future state we're going towards. Why do we exist? Why do we want to serve these customers? From there, our outcomes are the why of movement. Also known as leadership. So with this, we're defining, in order to achieve our ideal state, what are the moves we want to make? So these are the more tactical changes that we're going to put into place. And the leadership really helps out here by guiding the organization towards these outcomes. By defining these outcomes, we're taking care of moving towards our ideal. The current state that we've mapped out, this correlates to our landscape. So this is the current situation that we're in. This is how things look like in our environment and where we are situated within it. And there's good questions available and a good practices and processes that have already been developed that help us define our current state. So you can think about organizational surveys as well as sort of different maturity models that help you place yourself in the context of how mature are you at surviving and acting in your environment, and how far are you from achieving your purpose. The obstacles next would be the climate. So these are the external factors in the environment that sort of act on our position and affect what we're able to do. Now, within Worley mapping, within the strategy cycle, climate is generally always just external factors. But I think the sort of analogy still has value here, in that obviously these things are, for the most part, things that are blocking us from achieving our outcomes, right? And finally, the last part, the experiments. This is a nice place and appropriate for doctrine. So we could think about the different practices, processes, models, and frameworks that have been developed and validated and sort of spread over the past however many years that help organizations move from where they are to some new position. So one of the reasons why this is so valuable, on top of hitting these different Worley mapping sort of categories from the strategy cycle, is that they're all pulled. And that means that once we've identified our ideal, it's much easier to have a group of people within a company naturally come up with and define their current position in relation to the ideal. It's easy for them to also talk about what are the obstacles they're facing that are preventing them from operating in their ideal, as well as come up with outcomes that they would like to see, that they think can help, again, move the company towards the ideal. And lastly, come up with experiments to make that happen. So this is valuable because the opposite of this would be some external party who comes in either as a coach or consultant and then imposes external beliefs, or their own views or doctrine on the organization. So we get around that. That doesn't happen. Everything here is fed from the team that we're helping, from the organization itself, and they don't need a coach's help or external help in defining what they as a corporation or a company would like to sort of be like in the future and what their obstacles are. The only thing that coaches can really help is obviously facilitate and guide an organization through this overall process, because this, just like the strategy cycle, is a loop, but it'll also really help guide them in driving experiments. I hope this was helpful. Thank you very much.